Okay, Mid-Penn Bank Podcast, episode number 30. Scott, are we calling this season 2?
We are, season 2.
So we actually crossed over season 1 with the Beyond the Game episodes that we recorded in July at the golf outing.
Yes.
And then we started to put them out every other week. So we went from not at a year to over a year during that time period. So we didn't have a celebration. We should have.
But summertime's always busy.
And we've also crossed over. We're at thousands of downloads at this point. We just hit another milestone.
Just crossed 4,000.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty good.
That's really good. I was reading an article from Tim Ferriss, who's one of the biggest podcasters. And the number of podcasts out there today are in the millions.
Wow.
I think 4,000 downloads for 1 year.
Yeah.
With a market of millions.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, Joe Rogan territory yet, but but we're getting there.
We're building it.
Yeah. We're not trying to get to Joe Rogan territory. Yeah.
That would be a full-time job.
So, we had, of course, the 5 Beyond the Game episodes, which I thought went really well. And, that was the first time we experienced with video. So we're continuing that on now and getting back to our regular bi-weekly recording. So this is the first time we've done this since June. Yeah. So excited to be back with you and looking forward to creating some great content. So today we have Matt Dotz.
Yep.
And Matt is our Information Security Awareness Officer.
That's right.
Right. So like 10 years ago, that position didn't exist, right?
No. Nope. Brand new.
Like when did that type of role at any company or particularly a financial institution, when did that kind of start?
It's new. And to be honest with you, for financial institutions, we're breaking ground.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of any financial institution, at least in this area, that has my position.
So what caused the outgrowth of that position?
So awareness is recognition in the attempt to accommodate the human element of cybersecurity. So we have all kinds of physical controls and technical controls, firewalls, antivirus, even now AI, all of these things. But the human, the actual person that's going to click that link or actually, reply back to that email, it's educating and training the human to make better decisions concerning cybersecurity.
So, we have a few hundred people that listen to every podcast. They're all individuals. They're all people. Does everyone have to worry about this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because every one of us has email, right? Every one of us gets text messages.
Everyone has a social security number.
Yeah, right. Every one of us.
So I just, for everyone out there, my name is in the public domain a lot, right? I'm the CEO of a publicly traded company. So you can Google my name and you could find out a tremendous amount about me. I have a social media presence, of course, but there's also public filings about how much money I make and estimates on my net worth and, where I live and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's kind of hard for me to, keep a low profile, right? But it's really at this point kind of hard for anyone, right? So I was just telling Matt that, just this week I received a letter from what was the name of it?
Change Healthcare.
Change Healthcare, which is an entity that I don't have a relationship with, but I think that they must do work with pharmacies or whatever.
Yes.
So somehow they had a breach, and somehow I was impacted by that. And they told me in this letter, it said that, what was breached was my name, of course, I think probably my address, my date of birth, my social security number. And like, well, that's a lot for people to work with. And so, how much is this? And we talked about this with John Paul. We had him in and Paul Spiegel, I think, right? And maybe episode 20-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, not early spring.
Yeah. And we talked about the amount of money that cyber fraud or cyber attacks, whatever you want to call it, how much that's draining out of the economy. And it's like an exponential growth, right? So if you go back to, I think, 2022 or maybe 2021, it was like under $7 billion, somewhere north of 6.5, under 7. But then by last year, it was 12.5 billion.
That's right.
Right. And this year it'll probably be closer to 20 billion. So this is like a real problem in the country, right?
Right.
And really the whole world, but the country. And so, like, let's start with, like, how did you get to this position? Well, like, what have you done educationally, and what things have you done in your career?
Yeah, sure. So I was a police officer, started on the street working patrol, did that for about 12 years.
And where was that?
Hershey, Dairy Township.
Mhm.
So I was doing that. And during that time, I had always been involved in computers, and I had a hobby website and that. And the department decided that they wanted to put somebody on the ICAC task force, which is Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So they were like, hey, Dots is the computer guy. So I ended up getting put on that.
Now, were you the computer guy, or were you just a guy that knew more about computers than anyone else?
That's right. So in the world of policing, like, if you can set up a network printer, you're the computer guy, right? Like, it doesn't take a lot. So I was a computer guy, and I got put on this task force, and I was trained in doing undercover online investigations for predators, child predators, right? I was like, like To Catch a Predator type thing.
That's good work, by the way.
Yeah, it's good work. It's exhausting.
It's not fun work, I'm sure, at all. But
not at all.
The outcome of that work is really good.
Yeah. So because of that, I transitioned into digital forensics. We were collecting all this evidence from the people we were arresting: computers, cell phones, tablets. And this is like in the early days of like iPhone 3, like these type of devices. It was like, how do we get the evidence off of here? Like, I know there's stuff on here. How do I get this? So started into digital forensics, moved from there. And then I ended up getting moved into cyber financial crime. I call it sci-fi crime. A lot of what we deal with here every day. I was assigned to a federal investigation.
Still with the police?
Yeah, still with the police. Yeah. And then I was moved still with the police, but I was assigned to a federal investigative task force out of Philadelphia, worked out of there for a little bit, and then locally here with the FBI, actually. And I was doing that, and the opportunity here at Mid-Penn Bank, I ended up doing almost 24 years with the police and in law enforcement.
So that whole time while you're working, you're the computer guy, and you start to do the child predator stuff. And like, are you going to classes? Are you?
Yeah. So I have a master's degree in digital forensics. I have multiple certifications in network intrusions, computer crimes, cyber crimes, and all that. So I'm continuously getting education while I'm moving along.
So then you get to Mid-Penn Bank.
Yeah.
How many years ago?
Coming up on 2.
Coming up on 2.
Yeah.
And so as our information security awareness officer, what's your primary role?
So my job is education and training concerning cybersecurity for our employees.
Right.
And also we've started to export that to our customers, which is awesome. A great program. We recognize a lot of our customers do not have the means for this education and training. So we've been moving that out to our customers. Fantastic work that we're doing.
So how do you, all right, well, let's start with the employees. So tell me about, how are you educating our employees on, how to protect the company and their own stuff?
We do classes, live classes.
Through the university?
Right here at the university. In these classrooms, we bring the employees in. We do outreach on WebEx, on our intranet. I have a page there continuously putting out content, a monthly newsletter, special events that we're doing. And I go around and talk. Like, I show up at the financial centers. We call them huddles.
So when you do that, do the people, like, do you feel like they're really captivated by what you're saying, or are they like, oh, geez, here comes Matt again? And
I like to think that I make it interesting enough that they're captivated.
I would think. Well, I mean, I think that you probably have a good way of doing that, but wouldn't aren't they like, aren't most people naturally interested in how to to prevent fraud?
Yeah, honestly, what really gets them interested is their personal life.
Right.
Like how do I protect myself in my personal
Mhm.
life? So a lot of questions pertain to that, and then I hook them on that and bring them into the bank.
Right.
So,
So, like, again, so you're there, you're at a financial center, and you're, giving a presentation, a morning huddle. Like, what types of things are like? How long are you going to do that for? Is it like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or?
usually it's no more than 30 minutes.
Okay.
Get there at 8:30. Financial center opens at 9. I
And
got
are you trying to
30
get
minutes.
one concept across to them that day?
I usually do kind of current events, like what
Mhm.
we're seeing in the bank. This is the attacks we're seeing. This is the fraud trends that we're seeing. Usually try to bring in something new to them, introduce them some type of new concept, and then answer questions. They always have
So,
questions.
are you involved at all on the testing side?
Yeah, with the email tests that we do.
Yeah, the phishing tests
That's
and things
me.
like that.
Yeah,
That is you.
that's me.
So, did we do that stuff before you came here?
We did, but not as much as what I'm doing. So
And what were the results of those tests before you got here and since you've been here?
it's it's getting better. So the one thing that my main goal and my metric that I'm trying to improve is the reporting. People recognizing a suspicious email and reporting it to the security
Mhm.
team for
And
investigation.
instead of just ignoring it or
That's
deleting
right.
it, like,
That's
do
right.
you do that, but you report it.
Yeah.
So
So
that's getting better.
the bad guys, when they send in, they usually just don't target one person. They'll send in the email 4, 5, 20 people.
Right.
And the faster that we can respond to that and pull it from inboxes, that's less likely that somebody else is going to make the mistake. So we want that reporting.
And so a lot of what you're doing out there when you're at the financial centers is stuff that might seem like it benefits them personally, but it's really your intention is to, that's a byproduct. Your
Uh,
intention is to help
Yeah.
them protect
The ba-
our information,
the bank.
the banks.
Yeah.
And so we've never had not to knock on wood because we haven't had a breach because I think that we're really good at educating our employees. And so when we're doing that, what are we trying to get them to not do?
A lot of things not do, but I have to give credit where's credit's due. And when I go into other businesses and I see they don't have a strong security culture, it's because the problem's at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things here at MidPenn is that it comes down from the top, from you, the other executives. Like I've never felt that I have not had support to do what we're going to do.
Right.
And that makes a huge difference. And that culture is there. Like we are going to be secure and we're going to do this right and we're going to be a better organization because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that carries through. It makes things a lot easier because when I go into other businesses and I'm trying to teach them and the manager's like not paying attention, I'm like, well, there's your problem.
Right. So when I'm still fascinated by this relationship between you and the employees.
Yeah.
And as you're trying to help them, get better at all this, and then you're testing them on the back end. So the relationship, do you think that when you show up, some morning, and obviously it's scheduled, you're not just showing up as a surprise. Do you think that they're looking forward to that? Is it?
When I do a test and someone fails, it makes the relationship different.
Right.
I'll see people here at the university and they failed the most recent phishing test and they're not so eager to come up and talk to me, right? There's a little bit of sting and embarrassment. And I usually go up to them and say, hey, what happened there? And we talk through it, right? The point of doing those tests is not to embarrass the employee.
Right.
Not to, I don't want anyone to lose their job. You have to understand, you have to feel the sting and know why we do that.
Right.
I teach a class here called Social Engineering Through Messaging. And it's an awesome
social engineering through messaging.
Yep. We look at email phishing, we look at SMS phishing, we look at the text messages that everyone targets or the bad guys target you with. Like,
yeah,
hey, it's, can you go buy me gift cards? It's Rory. I'm tied up in a business.
What Matt's talking about is oftentimes, several times a year, random employees will get text messages from me, but they're not really from me.
That's right.
And it was really funny. So, the text messages, like a lot of our employees get emails and text messages from me
Right.
throughout the year, asking for information or for doing, gift cards or whatever. And it was funny because this past holiday season, I was, of course, I'm running late and I don't have all my shopping done. And it's, everything's closing in a few hours and I still needed to get a couple gifts. And I didn't even have time to like go to one of our financial centers and sit there and, get gift cards. So I sent a text to Eric Anzana, who's the manager of our Campbell Financial Center. And I said, Eric, I'm running late. I need some gift cards. Can you get me, 5 gift cards in these denominations and just have them ready? And then as soon as I looked at it, I thought, man, there's no way he's going to believe this is me. So I sent it and then I called him and he answered his phone and he said, did you just send me a text? And I said, yes, that was me. But, like in this day and age, and we're going to talk a little bit about the, AI generated voices, like they've got to be careful even on something like that because I could send him the text and make the phone call and neither one of those could have been me.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So
Absolutely right.
it's, we all have to be very vigilant and again, me being out there and so much in the public domain doesn't make it, that task any easier.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you're the target of that
Right.
all the time,
Right.
and our employees are the ultimate target. But so I teach this class where the best way I have found to get people to recognize suspicious emails, text messages is to just show them.
Right.
So we've collected this massive amount of text messages of suspicious emails, and we go through and we look at them. Why is this suspicious? What do you see here? Why would a legitimate business send this email
Right.
like this? And it's a great class. It makes a difference.
And there's some very convincing texts and emails you get. I have to look at them sometimes. I got a text about my Easy Pass. Then no, it's no longer working, and click on this, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, well, I do have Easy Pass.
That's right.
And it maybe my credit card expired or something, and then I'm like, nah, delete it. So
Yeah,
it's tempting. It's hard.
it is hard. And unfortunately, a lot of times legitimate businesses don't come from that fraud
Right.
security mindset.
We do,
And we
right?
do. So they send out a message that, yeah, we just need to communicate with our customers. And it's like, that's really poorly written. Like, that is really
Right,
poorly constructed email. And you're concerning a lot of people,
right.
even
And-
though it's legitimate.
So that, I think that we, by and large, have employees who are motivated to do this because, the consequences of someone doing something wrong here could be, financially devastating to the company. They're also protecting their customers' information, obviously. And they know that their job kind of depends on it, right?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
if they fail those tests over and over and over and over, and you keep providing education, they keep failing, like at some point, right, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, and even more, when I come into new hire orientation, I tell them, hey, there was a bank robber named Willie Sutton. And one day they said, hey, Willie, why are you robbing the banks? And he said, because that's where the money's at. Well, at this point today, we're not getting attacked because of our cash money. The bad guys are attacking us because of our data. That's
Right.
what they want. Our data that we have about our company and our customers is worth way more than any cash that we have.
Right.
And why do people put money in our bank? Because they trust us.
Mhm.
If we lose their data, they're not going to trust us. They're not going to put money in our bank, and therefore we're going to have problems. So you look at the big picture, you doing this the right way, you securing our customers' data is keeping us in line and keeping us in business.
Right.
And all the statistics show these companies, particularly small and medium businesses that lose customer data, they really struggle
Mhm.
overcoming that reputational harm.
And we've seen it. We've seen not because of us, but we've seen a lot of our commercial customers, seen a lot of our individual customers that get, lose control of their information, get phished, and then get some type of cyber attack, and then they have to pay a ransom, and it's devastating. And it tends to be smaller businesses that maybe don't invest in the right type of cybersecurity infrastructure, and it tends to be older people who aren't as adept, on electronic devices, and who might be more susceptible to, the kind of schemes that they come up with, which are very elaborate schemes. And so, how are we trying to help them? The consumer customer who might be, in one of our more rural footprints, who might be at a little bit, older age, maybe my age or more. And like, what are we doing to try to get to them? Because, educating our employees is very important, of course. But how do we help the customers?
Yeah, so and it starts at the financial centers. Our financial centers, our managers, assistant managers out there are doing awesome work. We do two things. We do customer events where we try to target our senior citizens, our older adults. And then we do workplace banking events where we're trying to target our business customers.
Right. So these are existing customers, and we go out there, ask them if we can have an hour and, spend some time with their employees trying to help them, which is benefiting them personally, but also benefiting the company, because if any one of those people get phished and hacked and give away the company's information, it could be devastating.
Yeah, I come in, for on the consumer side, our older adults that we really pay attention to. I have two events coming up, one in Du Bois, one in Phillipsburg, going out there, great communities, and trying to do education for our senior citizens. The workplace banking, come in for an hour, usually over lunch. We bring in some snacks, some food. I do usually a 30-minute cybersecurity presentation on whatever topic is applicable. It benefits them because their employees are getting trained at no cost to them, just for banking with Mid-Penn Bank.
Mm-hmm.
It's a benefit. It's an added value of banking with us that we bring to them. And it's awesome. Like we have great things going on out there.
So do you think that are there other financial institutions doing the same thing?
No, absolutely not. That's one of the things I say is, hey, call up, bank, not to name names, but call up and ask them, any financial center or branch, and say, hey, can I talk to someone in your information security department?
Right.
Can I talk to your CISO? No.
Yeah.
You come into any Mid-Penn Bank branch and I will call you back.
Right.
Absolutely call you back. And if I don't know it, I know that Cal or John Paul will absolutely call you back.
This might surprise you, but I'm disappointed to hear that there aren't other banks that are doing the same thing, because I'm not looking for a competitive advantage. We already have enough competitive advantages. I would love to. It breaks my heart anytime I see anyone get, lose control of their information, have identity theft happen, have something, taken from them, whether it had anything to do with us or whether it was a customer of ours or not. Oh, it's heartbreaking. I mean,
It is.
You get all the trade journals and you read all the things. I mean, like, what are some of the awful spilled milk stories that you've seen or heard?
Yeah, so I tell this story of my transition out of law enforcement, and it's kind of a long journey of how this happened, but I was working cyber, and I distinctly remember the case, and I just stopped, and some people have heard me tell this story before, where I was like, we're just not good at this. Like, we just aren't good at doing these cyber crimes. And it's not that we're not good investigators. It's not that we're not trying. It's just everything that makes cybercrime happen is so much better.
Mm-hmm.
So virtual private networks, the Tor browser, cellular networks, drop phones, right? Prepaid cell phones. I can walk in the corner store. I can buy a phone, put some minutes on it, and access the internet. Voice over IP calling. So, and I always get, when I talk to my senior citizens out there, I'm like, hey, you know how your phone says 717 area code? You pick it up and it's somebody on the other side of the country. Or even funnier, when you call yourself, that's voice over IP calling. And I explain that to them. These things are very hard to investigate and overcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the onus is on you, the business owner or the consumer, to constantly be protecting yourself. Law enforcement, as much as I love law enforcement. You know, in my heart, I'm still there. It's not the answer. By the time they get involved, you're done. You've been victimized. You've lost money. It's prevention.
So you were using the terminology before we started to record about the boom.
That's right.
And being left of the boom or right of the boom. And I think that's what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and that's, I wrote an article, plug. If you go to midpennbank.com, go to the resources, drop down. There's a brand new cybersecurity blog there that we launched. We have articles there. We're putting out fresh content, and it's really, I'm proud of it.
Can you guys slap the on the butt? I noticed you came over and moved my microphone. Was you weren't getting enough of my face? That was on purpose.
Yeah, so I'm super proud of that. It looks great. And I wrote an article there about the national public data breach where they lost. And
that was just recent, right?
It was recent. And in their words, most Americans, they lost our data.
That was the biggest one to date, right?
Yeah, and it looked a lot bigger than what it actually turned out to be, but it's still, I think they're saying like 172 million Americans. That's still a lot. It's most of us. And the thing about that is it's one of the first that they lost Social Security numbers.
Right.
And I wrote the article and I explained in law enforcement, in the military, we have this concept of boom. Boom is the explosion or the event. And we want to live left of boom. We want to live out here where we are in control. We have options. We have choices. We're seeing everything calmly. Once that event happens, that bomb goes off, we're right of boom. It's chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have control. Someone else is controlling you and you are reacting. So we want to be right of boom. And unfortunately for most of us at this point, and even you just said, you know, that you've received multiple of these letters. We're all living right of boom.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to take the steps every day to be protecting your identity.
So what are the 3 things that you would recommend people who, you know, might be still left of boom, or maybe they're left of the next boom? Like, what are the things that they can do to avoid that, to stay in that comfortable zone?
Yeah, you need to check and you need to check your accounts every day.
Your deposit accounts.
Yeah, your checking account, whatever accounts you have every day.
Right.
Look at them. Do I have unauthorized charges? Check your credit report. You know, freecreditreport.com. You get one a year. You can pay for some services where you can go in and check it more regularly. Check your credit report. Is there stuff there that shouldn't be? Everybody asks me about monitoring. Should I sign up with one of these services that does dark web monitoring? And my answer to that is, what are they going to do for you if you are on the dark web?
Right.
Right. And the dark web back in the day was this scary concept. Nobody knows how to get there except the criminals. Well, it's pretty common now. And if you kind of have a little bit of tech knowledge, you can find out how to get there. But the problem is it's decentralized. So the information there, the websites out there are really hard to remove or to take down. If you sign up for one of these monitoring services and they tell you, hey, we found your information on the dark web. Okay, awesome. What are you going to do to get it down? That's the question you have to ask them. If they can answer that and they say, well, these are the steps that we take, great. If they're like, yeah, well, we're just kind of telling you that it's out there, I'm assuming it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
One of the benefits that they do offer is the insurance policy. So some of them have real nice insurance policies. If you do get victimized, that they will cover you for the remediation costs.
But what about like credit monitoring agencies? I know that they were like a big thing after the first data breaches. Are they still worthwhile? Like the ones that would monitor your credit?
Yeah, they do it all together.
Yeah, they're not trying to see if your information is on the dark web. They're just monitoring your credit. And if someone applies for a loan, they contact you. Is that still a thing, or is that
no? They still have those, but now that's when I was speaking about the dark web monitoring. They lump that all together, so they call it monitoring. So you can do that yourself, or if you want to put it on autopilot, then sign up for one of these services.
Right. So I doubt that you're going to put a plug in for another company, but in your opinion, what are the best of those if you're going to go that route?
Yeah, it's there's so many of them out there. It's going to have to be, what is your budget?
Right.
How much can you afford to pay a month? What services are they offering me for that monthly payment? And what benefits am I getting afterwards?
Right.
And it's going to be different for everybody, but there are reputable ones out there
Mhm.
that we see the ads for.
Okay, so credit monitoring or dark web monitoring, that's one of the things you could do.
Yep.
What else?
Credit freeze or a credit alert, and those are done through the reporting bureaus. So there's 3 reporting bureaus that you can contact. Now the credit or the fraud alert just lets them know, hey, I'm a victim of identity theft, or I may be, and any business that queries my credit, they need to confirm that the person they're dealing with is actually me.
Mhm.
Um, the credit freeze actually freezes the account so nobody can open a new trade line.
Including you.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to unfreeze it.
Right.
So nobody can open a new trade line without going through this process.
Right.
The alerts are for a year. You just have to contact one of the 3 reporting bureaus, and they share information. The freeze, you have to contact all 3 reporting bureaus separately and do the freeze yourself.
So the alerts, is that just alerting you that someone applied for something, a credit, for credit under your name?
Yeah, and it lets the business that is querying your credit know, hey, this person may have been a victim. You better get ID and make sure that
Right.
who you're dealing with is actually the person who's doing the application.
So again, going back to the kind of nightmare stories, I think that a lot of people's temptation is to say, so what? So they get my information and they apply for a credit card in my name. I'm not going to be responsible for that. Is that true or no?
You eventually will not be responsible, but how much
But
is
it could devastate your credit history and until you do a lot of stuff to clean that up, right?
that's right. How much is your time worth to
Right.
clean this up? And there's studies that show the stress of victimization, that how much it takes a toll on your mental and physical health from being victimized.
Right.
All the cleanup that you have to go through, the constant hassle, the constant, uh, someone gets arrested in Cleveland, Ohio, and they used your name, and now you have a warrant for your arrest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's so many different things that you don't really think about until it actually happens to you.
So what else? What else can people do?
So they need to file reports with the Federal Trade Commission,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, I believe, identitytheft.gov. They have a whole wall of information there of what you can do and how to go about it. The Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, that's the reporting bureau of the FBI. So I think it's ic3.gov, you can file a complaint there. You want to file a report with your local police. Now, a lot of times they're not going to launch an investigation, but you're going to want that incident number
Mm-hmm.
in case somebody asks for it down the road. The IRS also will take a report in case somebody files a tax claim using your information.
So again, does this stuff sounds like it's a little bit right of boom?
Yeah.
This
is all.
But if you're
after.
back on the left of boom, you said monitor your credit, maybe even sign up for one of the monitor. Is there anything else they can do? Like, would you say the fewer credit cards you have, the the more the more frequently you look at your accounts, like obviously would those things
Yeah,
help
so
prevent?
it comes down to vigilance. It comes
Right.
down to paying attention, knowing what you have out there. So many people, when I was in law enforcement, they would file a report and they would say, I have this massive, I'll use a company that's no Sears bill. I didn't even know I had a Sears credit card,
Right.
but they had taken it out a long time ago, never closed it down. Someone intercepted and started to run up the bill. So it's that vigilance of knowing what accounts I should have and monitoring them,
Right.
trying to limit ones you don't use anymore. And I know there's I'm not a credit guy, but there's things out there that you want to have a certain amount of credit and a certain amount of credit cards. Try to limit. If you're not going to use it, it's just open out there for someone to abuse.
Right.
So
How about this? I mentioned before the social media profile. Like, does that make you an easier target if you do have a social media presence?
it makes you an easier target to socially engineer.
Right.
When I talk to the new hires and I got to do my classes, I do password security, password control. And I explain to them and I actually show them how the bad guys go to your social media. They go to LinkedIn, they go to Facebook, they go to Twitter, they Google you and find press releases that your company put out about you. They gather all this information and then they can take keywords, put that into these AI tools that will then spit out potential passwords.
Mm.
Like, so I'm a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. I'm probably going to make a password using Pittsburgh Pirates. And, maybe I drive a Mustang. So there'll be a combination of Pirates, Mustang. My dog's name is Jake. I have a son named John. So they gather this up because they know that's how people make passwords. And then the AI starts spitting out potential passwords that then they can use against the target. That's why I teach. You never want to use any information that's known about you to create a password.
Wow. That's scary.
Yeah.
So is that another recommendation though? Like change your passwords frequently?
Oh yeah. Change your passwords. You should, and one of the things that I just wrote an article about that's going to go up on the public blog this week is not to recycle passwords. You should have one password for each account. When I was in law enforcement, and I even hear it now from some of our customers, but when I was in law enforcement, I would have a victim and they would be like, I don't know how this happened. They got my LinkedIn account, they got my Google account, they got my bank account. How did they how did they know everything about me? It's because how do you create an account? Usually with an email address. So if you use that email address to create multiple accounts and then you use the same password,
they're going to get in.
Once they get in one, they can go through. And what's even better, there's tools out there where you can put in an email and it will query all of the social media accounts, all of the email accounts to see if there's an account there. So say I'm using, Matt Dots, Matt Dots at gmail.com. They put in the tool Matt Dots at gmail.com. It goes out to all the social media accounts, tries to create an account using that email address. If they can't create an account, they know that there's already an account made using that email address. So then all they have to do is just go and use the potential passwords.
Right. Wow.
It's scary stuff. So, Matt, with passwords, what about using, I use 1Password. There's
Excellent.
a few other tools to help you create complicated ones.
Yeah, that's what we push, password managers to help you do that. I use LastPass, 1Password. Most people are like, yeah, I never heard of password.
So what if you forget your password to get in the LastPass?
Well, that's a problem.
I think that happened to me.
What I do, and my wife and I, so we use LastPass. I have the family edition, so my kids use it also. But my wife and I take our 1Password, we write it down, and then we have it in a place in our house that if someone breaks into our house and finds this note, they won't probably know what it is. But in the event that something happens to one of us and we need to get into their account. So if something happens to my wife, I need to get into her account. Something happens to me, she needs to get in my account. We can do that.
Right.
So, have that 1Password written down somewhere.
All right. So different passwords for each account. Check your accounts frequently. Check your credit frequently. Maybe get a credit monitoring. What else?
Yeah, that's you'll go if you two-factor authentication on your accounts. So if you do the MFA, if you do some of that, you can really clean things up and protect. Using a password manager really helps.
Yeah,
with an authentication tool. That really helps. So even if the bad guys get your password, they can't get that second factor. They can't get that code. Now, don't get socially engineered to where you give the code away because someone's going to call you and say, hey, we're fraud investigation with Mid-Penn Bank. We're going to send a code to your phone. Give us that code so we can confirm that you're who we're talking to. We want to make sure we're talking to Matt Dotz. So if you can read this code back to me, I'll know I'm talking to Matt Dotz. Well, really, they're just logging into your account and you just gave them that code.
Right.
So you really have to watch for the social engineering also. But, some of these simple things will really, really clamp down.
Do you trust
on this.
anyone, like any emails or any texts you get or any calls you get to you? Do you answer your phone?
I answer my phone because I'm nosy and I like to, play
If it's
around.
not a number that's in your,
It depends what I'm doing. If I have some free time, maybe I'll answer it and see what's up. But if I don't have time, then normally I don't.
yeah. So I've always told my wife that don't answer any calls that you don't know the number, because they could just be trying to record your voice. And
Yeah, speaking of recording voice, the AI voice cloning is even more problematic than I ever could have imagined.
right.
If you would have asked me a year ago, hey, is AI voice cloning a problem? I would have said, no, we're not there yet. Within the past year,
You guys should have probably brought do you have it?
I don't have it with us, but we could put it in and give a small
Yeah.
example of what it sounds like.
yeah. So,
let's pause for a moment and allow them to insert it.
Hey, Andrew, it's Rory. Hey, listen, Big Box Store is one of our customers, and they will be sending a wire later today. We need to make sure that gets approved. No need to call me back. Call the owner of the company at 717-555-1212 if you have questions. You're my man. Thanks.
This was a AI generated call that you created, right?
yeah. So I went to the podcast with your permission.
Right.
You were gracious enough to do that to benefit the bank. I went to I didn't even have to talk to you. I didn't even have to
Right.
meet with you. I just went to the podcast. I recorded 30 seconds of your voice using an AI tool, and I cloned your voice, and it's really good.
Right. So they'll play that for you. You'll slip that in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, which maybe we shouldn't even
So I
only
make
good people are watching it.
I make the joke when I go out and do that training that eventually you'll never be able to leave a voice message again because nobody will ever believe that
Yeah,
it's actually you.
I don't know how to, like, I don't know that I would trust anyone calling me right now. Like,
Yeah.
if they were asking me to give them, even if it was my best friend, if they were asking me to give them information, I think I would say, let me call you back.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies and even some families that are going to a safe word. So if you're talking to somebody and you're not sure if you're actually talking to them, you may say, what was the score to the Eagles game?
Right.
And they better say 21-0. Whatever the score was,
Right.
it's 21-0
Right.
to eliminate that. And that's one of the mitigations. But it's really good. And I used to, when I talked to my senior citizens and I would go out and we talk about the grandparent scam, that's where
Yeah.
they get the phone call and it's, hey, grandma, it's Bobby. I'm in Mexico. I was arrested. I need bail money. I could say to them, you slow down, just slow the call down for a minute. Ask a couple questions. You'll recognize that voice isn't right.
Right.
But now it actually is the grandson.
Right.
Right? Because they cloned the voice. Well, how did they get the voice? Because all of these kids are on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, it's social media. So they just need this small clip of their voice. They clone the voice.
So I said it earlier. So having a social media presence doesn't really help you in this. It potentially
No.
could hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Social media is great for fun. It's great for professional outreach. But in the terms of fraud and security,
Having a podcast doesn't really help you.
yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Go into your house, close the doors, and lock the windows.
Well, that's, what are you supposed to do?
All right.
You got to live your life. You just have
right.
to
Well,
be smart.
and that's why the practical advice, the things that you can do. I don't think that you're ever going to eliminate people's ability to steal your identity.
No,
right?
no.
Like, because they have more time and more resources, they being the criminals, right? Because, they're, I don't want to generalize too much. Maybe they're coming from another country. Maybe they're sitting in their parents' basement with, a case of Red Bull and Domino's on speed dial, and like they're just trying to get in, right? And
That's an excellent point. And I always make that when I'm out, people who've been victimized. And when I was in law enforcement, people would feel so bad and they'd be like, I can't believe I did this. It was so stupid of me. And I would say, just the way that you go to work every day, you and I go to work every day to make a living. These bad guys go to work every day and their job is to defraud you and to scam you. And they work really hard at doing it.
right.
And they're really good at it. Really good. They have nothing to do all day but come up with ways to scam you.
Right. So pretending, taking a head in the sand approach is not a good idea.
No.
Like you got to do something.
Yes.
And then it's just a matter of how vigilant, you think you need to be based upon how many credit cards do you have? How many different accounts do you have? How often have you used the same password? Do you have a social media presence? Like the more risky your profile is, the more vigilant you have to be, right?
That's right. It all comes down to risk profile. It's the same thing we do here at the bank with our risk program, right? We make decisions based on our risk, and you have to do the same thing in your personal life.
So you have these seminars where you go out and talk to individuals and you give them ideas, and it's free, right?
Yeah, free. Yeah, come out.
And you said you do the workplace stuff.
Workplace banking. Yeah.
When you're gone and talking to the employees of a business, are you also consulting with the business?
Yeah, and that's not only that, we're trying to help them and push them in the right direction.
Right.
Look, if our customers get victimized and they lose money, that's not money that's coming to the bank, right? It's in our interest, and it's nobody wants to see anybody victimized. Nobody wants to see anybody in that hurt.
I made this case to our regulators because I wanted to formalize this as a business. And they, their response was, how's this related to banking? And I said, how's it not related to banking?
That's right.
Like, our customers' greatest risk is operating their business. Their second greatest risk, which is kind of related to their first risk, is they get defrauded and they lose control of their information. They lose control over their ability to operate their business. So if that happens and it's a credit customer of ours, then that jeopardizes our repayment, right? If they're a deposit customer of ours, it jeopardizes the deposits they have with us that, we're lending to someone else. So I think that it's very much related to banking, but I haven't been able to convince anyone else so far.
We're the perfect choice because we already have a trust relationship with those customers.
Absolutely.
They trust us already.
Well, that was the rest of my point. Like, well-structured financial institutions have the ability to put resources behind this. And, it's not like we're going to sell product. I would never want to do that, but I'd sell advice.
Yeah, no. And it's not even, you're exactly right. Advice. And just to point them in the right direction. There's so many of these small businesses that we go to, and even when they have been victimized and we reach out like, hey, because your accounts have been shut down. I know Chris has talked about this before, the process that we have. So we reach out and say, hey, like what happened? Who's your instant response firm? Who? What? Who's your IT firm? Well, Comcast hooked the internet up. Like these smaller businesses have nothing and they don't know where to go. And just that we can come in and just kind of guide them in the right direction is, it's something that other banks aren't doing.
So another thing that I think that people can do to protect themselves is to meet with someone like you.
Yeah, no,
right?
yeah.
And so we, for those of you that are watching or listening, Matt does do several seminars throughout the year. And at those seminars, anyone can come, right?
Anybody can come.
Right. The, work that you might do with a business client or business client's employees, that's, generally speaking, customers of ours.
Yeah, that is. But anybody can call me. I will talk to anybody. And maybe you become our customer, maybe not. But I don't want to see anybody victimized, right? Like that's horrible.
Well, that's a very generous offer. So I'm paying for you to help other people out that aren't customers. So he says, if you become a customer, great. I say, become a customer, utilize Matt's skills to help you protect what you've worked hard to have. And just be vigilant. And it's a shame that we have to do this. It really is, right? But the alternative to putting your head in the sand, the alternative of putting your head in the sand could lead to some really devastating consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that $12.5 billion, which again, I think my guess is it's going to be closer to 20 billion, and next year it might be closer to 40 billion. Like it's exponential. You don't want to be part of that. You don't want your hard-earned savings or your life's work to be part of that. And the only way to do it is to become vigilant and to, talk to Matt or someone like Matt and, get as many ideas and tips. And, if you want to talk to Matt, if you're listening to this podcast, and there'll probably be a few hundred people that do, and you want to talk to Matt, we'll put the number on the bottom of the screen. You can call our 800 number and ultimately get to Matt, and he'll have a conversation with you because he's a good guy. And, we're really trying to help as many people out as we can.
That's right. Or walk into any financial center. Our financial center managers and assistant managers are awesome. A lot of times they have the answer themselves because they've seen the fraud. Like they know the answer,
Right.
and they'll put me in touch with them anyways. But they can help right away. They're well trained and compassionate. Walk into any financial center and you'll get help.
If you do get the text, if you do get the email, if you do get the phone call from your grandkid, and call your banker, just say, give me your opinion. Is this legitimate? Right?
Yeah,
We've had that like real life action. We had that. I think it was in Tower City, and a customer came in and he was looking to withdraw a bunch of money, and the teller noticed that he seemed different and said, "Who are you talking to on the phone?" Because he had his phone.
Yeah.
And he was being scammed. And he was mad at first.
They do get mad, yes.
And then when he realized that, she basically saved him, and he was very appreciative. And, that's the type of work that I think that all of your disciples, all of our other employees are doing.
Absolutely.
After your guidance. So
Absolutely.
All right, Scott. This was the Beyond the Game was a lot of fun conversations. This one was, probably a little bit more substantive, and there's some underlying currents of badness in this, as we talk about fraud and crimes. But Matt, thank you for coming in, for spending almost an hour with us and giving us some really good tips. I think we could have Matt back.
Absolutely.
I think it's got to be a regular feature.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So we're going to be back in a couple of weeks. I think we've got Dave Latour coming up, right?
Our first return guest.
Yeah, he's a return guest. So what we're going to do with Latour in a couple of weeks, I've been on his show a couple times, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from employees and listeners and customers that people want me to talk about myself, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to bring Latour in, and he's going to interview me.
I think it's going to be great.
on our show.
I think I'll just sit back, put my feet up, let Dave do all the work.
Well, he and I have a pretty good rapport with each other, and he's a pretty good interviewer, not as good as me, I don't think, but pretty good. And so we'll see how it goes. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and everyone have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you for listening to the Mid-Penn Bank podcast. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. The podcast can be found at Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever you find great podcasts. If you have any feedback or questions, email us at podcast@midpennbank.com. References in this podcast to MidPenn are to MidPenn Bancorp, Inc. and its subsidiaries and affiliates. This podcast expresses the views of its participants and may not represent the views of MidPenn or its officers and employees. In addition, these views are subject to change without notice, and MidPenn has no duty or obligation to update the information contained in this podcast. This podcast is being made available for informational purposes only and should not be used for any other purposes. You are encouraged to consult with competent legal, tax, accounting, or investment professionals before engaging in any financial transaction. MidPenn does not make any warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the information in this podcast, does not endorse any third-party companies, products, or services, and assumes no liability for your use of this information. Forward-looking statements should not be considered guarantees or predictions of future events. This podcast is the sole property of MidPen and may not be copied, reproduced, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without prior written consent of MidPen.